We got a lot to talk about today, and we have the best host that could possibly be sitting in this chair next to me on the CHGO Bears Podcast. We know what could go right in 2025, but let's be smart and think about what could go wrong. Nothing could go wrong. Stephen Nicholas on the show, starting right now. Welcome back to CHGO Bears Podcast. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr., and alongside me is the man, the myth, the legend. For most of you, you know him as our producer, but he is the hardest working friend I have ever been around. That is Stephen Nicholas. The man is relentless in his approach and his work ethic. His golf game has a lot of work to do, but this man is a good friend, and I'm excited to have you on the show today.
Me too. Oh, what an intro. It's weird being on the other side of the camera for once, you know?
Yes.
It's been a while.
It's well-deserved, and, you know, Carm's taking a break today, and Hoag's having, you know, his 3-month-long vacation, and we're excited for him to return. But it is going to be a nice day where me and you, who, you know, have become good friends off the screen, now we get to have some fun on the screen here.
Yeah, we get to do something different. Normally we have these exact same conversations on the phone for hours on end every single night, and now we get to do it with everybody here watching us.
That's right. That's right. So hit the like button for Steven, and shout out to Katie for coming on in a pinch to produce for the second day in a row here on the CHGO Bears Podcast. So we're going to be getting into some fun stuff and appreciate everybody here in the chat hanging out. So let's get right into it here, ladies and gentlemen. You see the title of the show. Talked about it a little bit yesterday with Hub Arkish and teased it a little bit. We've talked so much about what's going to go right in 2025, and I think it's human nature as fans to always project best case scenarios. Everything's going to work out, and then it smacks you like a ton of bricks when the season hits and you realize, hey, you know, all these things we projected don't necessarily pan out the way we hoped.
Yeah,
and so
we always see the rose-colored glasses going into every single season. Everyone's always thinking, hey, this is going to be every single thing that's going to work out this year. It's going to be great. The Bears are going to be 10-7. They're going to make the playoffs. We did that last year.
Right.
We made that mistake. But there's always the other side of it that we try to ignore because we want to look at things with rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, and I made a promise to all of you here to start this offseason, and I said that I was going to keep my hype at a controlled, responsible level. And so that's what today is. It's the Meatball Protection Program.
Wow.
Because we all know once training camp starts, I'm going to lose my mind. It's just what happens every year. And so I figured, you know, for checks and balances, we try to look on the other side of the coin. It's not easy for me. We don't want to think about the things that will go wrong. But at the same time, to cover our tracks and sit here and try to, you know, be objective and think about some of these things of that may take some time or may not work out. Doesn't mean they can't still be a good team, but you have to be realistic in thinking like, hey, not everything is going to go the way you planned. So, you know, we're going to have some fun with this. We got some other things we're going to get to here and later in the show as well. So let's get right into it, Katie. And I've got my list of 5, and then we'll get to Steven's here in just a few moments. But these are my 5 right here, and I'll start from 5 and work my way down. But I've talked about it before. This schedule is certainly, you know, going to be a challenge for everybody in the NFC North. And I really just look at those first couple games. I'm big about starting fast, and I know the Bears started 4-2 last year. Could have been 5-2, and it didn't quite. Should have been 5-2, and so that kind of goes against what normally, you know, I say with this stuff. But it is important to me that this Bears team starts fast and wins that Week 1 game. If they were to somehow steal Week 2, now all of a sudden you're kind of off and running. Your bye week is after Week 4, after the Raiders game. We'll be in Las Vegas, of course. And so because as you get deeper into this contest, it's gonna get harder. Now, last year, we didn't have our first divisional game until what, week 11 or something. So obviously, you're starting 2 games in the season with divisional games. First game's a home game. You can't lose your home games. You can't lose your division games. So you get one right out the gate. I'll take it because I didn't really like how last year played out with it. All our division games getting sandwiched at the end of the year.
Well, you also talked about, you said week 1, Vikings, must-win game. You've been saying that all offseason, ever since the schedule came out. I mean, if you're looking at that as a loss, worst-case scenario, that's what we're doing here, and then you're going to the Lions week 2, you're staring 0-2 down the barrel right now. And everyone kind of writes off the Cowboys. I'm going to have a little bit to say about this when I get to my list as well. Everyone kind of writes off the Cowboys. They're not a bad team. Dak Prescott's going to come back healthy now. They've actually done something minimal to try to improve the run game this year, which they hadn't done last season. And then whenever you have CeeDee Lamb on your team, you got a shot. Add in George Pickens now to that mix. That team's not bad. So, I mean, the start of the schedule to me, it's a very daunting thing. And when you're looking at week 4, the Raiders, even they're so much better. They got Geno Smith now. They went out, they draft Ashton Genty. That's not a team that I necessarily think is an easy win anymore like I did when the offseason was first starting.
Yeah, and it's all about momentum, right? Because if you were to win that first game, steal week 2, now you're at home week 3 against the Cowboys, and that's where you start to see the snowball kind of start to form. And I think for most Bears fans, we've kind of been somewhat familiar with that snowball. It's once every 10 years, but when everything seems to be going right for the Bears, that's kind of where it goes. But when you look at this schedule, it is not easy. As you get through the rest of this season, they have one of the tougher schedules in the NFL. And so for me, that's going to be, I think, number 5 on my list of things that, while we have all these plans of making the playoffs, maybe the schedule isn't necessarily agreeing with that, especially with a team that's going to take time to build some chemistry. So, Katie, if you wouldn't mind bringing my list back up here, I think number 4 for me is the rookies simply are not ready. We have high expectations for Colston Loveland and Luther Burden as our first and second round picks, Ozzie Trapillo as well in the second round. I certainly have high expectations for him.
Yes, you do.
Right, and so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, especially with Colston and Luther not participating in off-season activities. And, a lot of people point at Sam Laporta as, the cause of why Colston Loveland could have a breakout year, and I understand that. But at the same time, Sam Laporta, is an anomaly for most of the, you have a top tight end go to the Raiders last year and have a breakout season. That's an anomaly. And to say, okay, well, look at these guys, and this is what Colston Loveland's going to do, isn't necessarily fair to Colston Loveland. And so, it's to me, that's a concern. Luther Burden, I'm really excited about, but how many opportunities are you going to actually have to get the football? I'm excited to find out, but I think we have to be cautious in understanding how big his role will be, especially if he isn't really adapting well to what Ben Johnson's asked him to do, his connection with Caleb Williams. That chemistry takes time. We already saw that last year with Caleb and Rome. And we learned this with Anthony Miller, who to me was a very talented wide receiver, but from everything that was reported, didn't always run the right depths of his route. And we know in the Ben Johnson offense, you've got to be precise in where he's trying to have you on the football field, those landmarks, that so Caleb Williams can complete. And then to finish it off, Ozzie Trapillo. I'm very high on Ozzie Trapillo as a potential left tackle for this team, but that's where I think my biggest blind spot is I think I'm setting myself up for failure a little bit there. We haven't even seen him at training camp. I'm already hyping him up. I said I wasn't going to do those kind of things, and there I am doing it. Braxton Jones is coming off an injury, and Karan Amagaji, is somebody that to me is still a development work in progress type of guy. And where we keep saying, may the best man win, I guess there is a scenario that there isn't necessarily a best man for this season, and they still have an issue at left tackle, and how defenses can exploit, those, weak links in what you have.
Yeah, I'll start at the top there with Colston Loveland. I looked over previous drafts. Since 2000 to 2024, there's been 24 tight ends selected in the first round of the draft. The hit rate on those has been a little bit less than half. So, I mean, if we're just going statistically here, expecting Colston Loveland to be a star right from the get-go is a really tall ask for him, because it's just not something that gets done that often. Sam Laporta, you're right, he was an anomaly. He was a second-round pick. He just has the right offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson finds a way to work him in. But also, T.J. Hawkinson was right out the door. He didn't really have a choice. He needed to be a hit right away. Colston Loveland doesn't really need to do that. Obviously, we talk about Cole Kmet being on this team. He's still one of the leaders of the team, and he's someone that's going to demand the ball himself. Moving over to Luther Burden, I'm concerned about the injury. Ben Johnson said that it's not a big concern. He's going to be ready for training camp. That's great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to get off to the fast start in training camp that he needs to be a productive rookie early on in the season. I wouldn't be surprised if, I always say this with running backs, if after the bye week we start seeing a little bit more of Luther Burden getting involved. I know Ben Johnson's going to find really creative ways to use him because that's what he does. I think we'll see a lot of Luther Burden in some of that DJ Moore role from last year. DJ Moore last season, he led the league in receiving yards on screenplays from a wide receiver. I think we'll see a lot of that for Luther Burden, doing a lot of the yak, the yards after catch. And if that's the case, I think Ben Johnson's going to put him in the perfect spot to be successful. The one guy that I don't think you mentioned there that I think actually has the best chance of starting fast is going to be Ruben Hippolyte, just because there's not much in the way of him getting on the field immediately.
Right.
I think he's going to be the starting Sam linebacker. And if he gets that opportunity, I think he's going to take it and run with it.
Yep. And then Shamar Turner, who's the other rookie that when you talk about not talked about that much, I think Ruben Hippolyte is even talked about more than Shamar Turner. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be interesting to see how those things play out. But we always have to be fair with rookies. They got to give them time to develop, and sometimes we project those guys to be ready faster than what we want. And we saw that last year with Caleb Williams and Roman Dunze, where we're projecting things that they just weren't ready for throughout the season. So that's certainly one blind spot I have to, kind of take into consideration. And that kind of rolls into, my third one, and that's chemistry taking too long to come together. This is a first-year offense. You got 2 rookies, 3 rookies potentially on offense that you're looking at here. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, and that chemistry of understanding, seeing the game through the play caller's eyes was something that Ben Johnson said. And making the same things look different and different things look the same sounds kind of cat in the hat. But at the same time, those are things that Caleb Williams is going to have to get on the same page with. And now you only have a limited time in training camp, a few preseason games. It's cut down from 4 games to 3 games. That's why those first 4 games are going to be really interesting to see what you have and then have a bye week to kind of reassess and what they need to adjust and what they're ready for. And so I think maybe we need to brace ourselves in those first 4 games of either having to grind through some wins because they're not going to be pretty, kind of like the Titans game last year, week 1, which is one of the ugliest wins I've ever seen, or potentially some losses, and then I'm going to have to try to keep my head cool on the post-game shows. So, I think that's just something that's an easy one to say. And I mentioned left tackle, when I mentioned the rookies, and that's, I think, my number 2 and one of my biggest ones. We all hope somebody's going to take and win that job, but somebody could potentially win that job by default, whether that's a rookie who's not necessarily ready for the big stage, but the other guys weren't healthy or are better than him, or Braxton Jones wins it because they don't want to put the rookie out there and Braxton isn't fully healthy, or, he obviously has already shown some limitations he has on the football field. So we all think the best man's going to win, but there is a potential that somebody just wins it by default.
Yeah, there might not necessarily be a best man. There's just a guy that's good enough to take the role. I mean, last year I kind of called Karan Amagaji's rookie year. The intent was supposed to be kind of a redshirt season, which is what he did at Yale, actually. He had a redshirt season to start that where he didn't really get on the field at all. That development didn't go the way we kind of hoped in his rookie year. He's a guy, there's a lot of draft capital there. He was a 3rd-round pick. He's a guy that they took maybe a little earlier than many had expected, but they saw something in him. I wouldn't write him off completely at this point, but I do think Ozzie Trapillo is going to be the favorite going into it, because I just don't know if we're going to get a healthy Braxton Jones at any point in training camp. I hope we do, because they need that veteran there, just one for support for Trapillo if Braxton Jones isn't ready, and 2, because you need depth at that position.
Yep. And so my final one, before we take a quick timeout, is, of course, defensive line not being able to get to the quarterback. This is my biggest concern for this season, something that they need to prove to the coaching staff and to us as fans that they're going to be able to do it. They brought in, an influx of depth, but is it an influx of talent? I'm excited for Shamar Turner as a rookie, but D-tackle, got to take time to develop. He's playing behind a lot of different guys there. You bring in Grady Jarrett, the veteran, and his reputation speaks for itself. But, he's on the backside of his career. Yep. How does he adjust when he comes here? Obviously, the Atlanta Falcons let him go. And we're all just kind of projecting, okay, he's going to do exactly what he did in Atlanta. We've learned with other veterans, it doesn't always work that way. Even Keenan Allen last year comes here, guy that's going to be in the Hall of Fame potentially here, and he had a lot of drop passes. So it's not always easy for even veterans, as great as they are in their resume show, to make that transition here. And then you talk about, Odangbo, Dio Odangbo coming here from the Colts and the $18 million a year they gave him, and he only had, 4 sacks last year?
Yes, career highs 8 in 2023.
Right, and so Montez Sweat, this is a big season for him to step up and be that leader of that defensive line, be that Julius Peppers that we need him to be. And I know he's not Julius Peppers. Julius Peppers just made the Hall of Fame. But at the same time, when we traded for him, and then gave him a big contract, he's got to live up to that, and he hasn't yet hit double-digit sacks with the Bears. The only double-digit sack guy we have on the Bears is Montez Sweat, but he had half those sacks with Washington when we traded for him. Mm-hmm. Austin Booker, who is he? The only guy that I always feel very strongly about on this defensive line that I know what I'm going to get from week to week is Andrew Billings. And so
he's coming off an injury.
And he is coming off a tough injury too. And it sounds like he's put on a little bit more weight. They even have him listed heavier than he was before. So, I don't know how you feel about the defensive line. I know we got to take a timeout, but it's one of those things that I think we've got to, kind of brace ourselves a little bit for, that maybe they aren't going to be this elite defensive line. Yeah,
what I'll say on that is you got your edge rushers, you have your defensive tackles. I am not worried at all about defensive tackle right now. To me, that's one of the strongest positions on the team now that you go out. You add Shamar Turner, you get Grady Jarrett, and then you hopefully get Andrew Billings back healthy. And then Jervon Dexter, a guy you didn't bring up, he's looking pretty lean this offseason. So I'm not worried about the inside. I'm worried about the outside. I don't know what we're getting with Odangbo yet. That was a $16 million per year deal that we signed him to. Man, that seems a little rich for my liking. If Dennis Allen could, he has his prototype there. If he could turn him into what he's seeing there, I'll eat my words and I'll be happy to do so.
Yeah, and it's going to be vital because in order to take advantage of that secondary, which is elite, you got to be able to get to the quarterback, or else they're kind of left on an island out there. So we're going to take a quick timeout. Hit the like button for Stephen Nicholas, who is our producer and our leader here on our CHGO Bears podcast team. He's been doing this here for quite a while now, and he keeps me, Hogan, Carm in line, and I know that's not an easy thing to do. So hit the like button for Steven as we welcome him into the host chair, and then we'll get to Steven's list after the break. But as Carm likes to say, but first. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer, and it's a one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs. Sunnyside has an expertly curated menu with over 100 different strains to choose from, plus, more importantly, easy online ordering and in-store pickup. So if you're starting out, Sunnyside has the expert guidance and brands we know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's. And they're all over the city. They're in the suburbs. They're in the city at Wrigleyville, right down the street from the Marquee, so you can get them anywhere you need them. So visit sunnyside.shop for Bright Buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter the promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright Buys every day, only for 21 or older or Illinois medical card holders. For existing users, use promo code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Lab Brands item.
And just like your favorite team needs a home field advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals, who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to those big box stores. They might have a flooring department, but those guys might have been bricklayers the day before. And as we all know, those guys are idiots.
Morons.
Every one of them. Empire Today lives and breathes floorings, and they will be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ballgame. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. Pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space. See how it looks with your furniture in your house. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code CHGO. Yes, you heard that right, a $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/CHGO for full details.
All right, we're back and better than ever. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here at CHGO Sports as we just eclipsed 85,000 subscribers here recently, making our way to 100K.
We're going to hit 100K very early in the Bears season is my prediction.
I hope so. I know it's going to start moving fast, especially when training camp starts, which is not too far away. I know. I'm excited for it. We're going to have a lot of fun coverage for you, training camp and all season long. Well, let's get into it because I know I rambled on for a while about my list. And so let's get to your list, Steven, on your 5 things that we need to watch out for that could go wrong for the Bears this year.
I mean, at number 5 for me, it's one that we saw last season, which is Jaquan Brisker isn't healthy. And the reason I'm concerned about this, one, for his personal health. I mean, was it 5 concussions now in his career going back to college as well? We're at the point now where we have to start getting very worried for, his longevity, not just on the field but off. These are serious things that could seriously affect the guy's life. And then from the football side of it, you look behind him on the depth chart, and there really isn't that much. It's Elijah Hicks and Jonathan Owens. Okay, Owens could step in. He could spot start. We saw some of that last season when Brisker was injured. But Brisker adds an entirely different element to that defensive backfield that, respectfully to Jonathan Owens, he just doesn't have. What we see with Brisker is he'll knock the ball loose. He'll lay the wood on any would-be receiver, and he just has this knack for playing downfield that I just don't see on the rest of the depth chart quite like he does. Mm-hmm. He instills fear in opposing offenses. So for me, Jaquan Brisker needs to stay healthy this season. Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's kind of like we're running it back with what happened with Tevin Jenkins and Jaquan Brisker last year, but you can't expect them to play all 17 games, and it's not a knock on them. It's just that's been the reality of their career here so far, so you kind of have to brace yourself for games where you're going to have to replace them. Now, you don't hope, or not hope, but you don't anticipate them missing the entirety of the year the way it laid out for Jaquan Brisker last year. But I do think you kind of have to be ready for the potential of him having to miss a few weeks here and there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want it to turn into a situation like we've seen with Tua Tagovailoa either, where some of his concussions have looked more on the serious variety, and people started questioning how long he could play in the NFL. And to this point, he's also been opposed to wearing the Guardian cap helmet. That's something I would love to see him do just for his own sake. I'll move on to my number 4, which is Montez Sweat repeats his 2024 season. We did not see the Montez Sweat that we saw in the second half of his first season with the Bears. And to me, if you're going to have, you mentioned the D-line getting to the quarterback, that's where it starts. He had 6 sacks in his half season with the Bears after the trade. Last season with the Bears, he had a total of 5.5. He was mostly healthy. He had the toe injury going into the season, and that slowed him down. But, man, I can't even count on 2 hands how many times I thought he was going to get a sack last year, and just barely you saw the quarterback just escape his grasp. He was so close to having a much better season, but the way we're going to look at that 2024 season is one that wasn't successful for him. He's in a big year this year, too, for his own contract. The Bears could opt to cut him after this coming season and get massive savings and, maybe pursue someone like Trey Hendrickson if he's still out there, at that point. So for Montez Sweat's sake, he needs to be a guy that's getting to the quarterback with consistency this season and also taking a little bit of pressure off the defensive tackle next to him. Yeah, no question about it. All right, so what do you got for number 3? This is my doomsday scenario. The Bears start the season 1-3. So you look at week 1, we already mentioned this a little bit. You get the Vikings. It's J.J. McCarthy's first career start. You hope he's got some nerves, similar to what we saw with Caleb Williams last season against the Titans in his first career start. If you lose that game, one, you're giving the Vikings a ton of momentum going into the rest of the season, and two, you got the Lions on deck. Most people are going to predict the Bears lose that Week 2 game to the Lions. So now you're looking at an 0-2 start. Week 3, I mentioned the Cowboys. They're not as easy as everyone pretends they are. They're a good team still. At worst, they're a 500 team in my eyes. So, I mean, Dak Prescott could put up numbers on any given day. If you're starting 0-2 and you're staring, 0-3 down the barrel with the Cowboys, that's trouble. And then you get the Raiders Week 4. That's a game I expect the Bears to win. I hope the Bears would win.
There's gonna be a lot of Bears fans there, including us.
Yeah, we'll be there, and we're gonna give them the CHGO bump like we usually do.
Right. And let's hope it goes like London with True Fan Travel and not Arizona with True Fan Travel, which was a miserable game to be at.
There's a little similarity there too. I mean, we're gonna be at the game, and then you're coming right out of that right into the bye week as well. But you have to win the games you're supposed to win. To me, the very worst you should start those first 4 games of the season is 2-2. And the reason this is so important is because you look at the schedule right after that bye week. You get the Commanders. That's the rematch of the Hail Mary game. The Saints, okay, that's a cupcake matchup.
You got to be feeling good about yourself in the bye week before you're playing the Commanders, because once Commander week starts, they are going to be reminding us of our worst moment of all of last year, and really one of our worst moments in franchise history, at least in my lifetime, over and over and over throughout that week. So you're hoping that they have a 2-2 or a 3-1 record somewhere around there, to where they're playing with a big chip on their shoulder, and not having negative vibes going to that game, and more kind of using that fuel to their fire.
The 3 of the first 4 games out of that bye, you get the Commanders, the Saints, the Ravens, and the Bengals. You could easily be 1-3 in those games. So that's why you cannot start 1-3. If you get to this point, your season's pretty much over.
Right.
The rest of the schedule is daunting. I mean, you still have to play the Lions again. You play the Eagles. You play the Packers twice still at that point, and not to mention the 49ers at the tail end of the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1-3 is not an option for the Bears. 2-2 at the very worst, and we really, to feel good about a playoff possibility, you really have to start 3-1.
Yep.
And then for me, my number 2, and this one's a legitimate concern, it's been my concern all offseason, is the running game just never really gets started. DeAndre Swift has been with Ben Johnson before. It didn't exactly go the way either one of them had planned, and from that point on, they shipped him to Philly. He had a pretty solid season. He finds his way with the Bears. Behind DeAndre Swift on the depth chart is a lot of question marks. Roschon Johnson hasn't really developed the way we would have hoped when he was drafted. Behind him, you have 7th-round pick Kyle Monangai, a guy I really like, but you're asking a lot out of a rookie, let alone a 7th-round pick, to be someone that's putting up massive yards for you in the run game. So DeAndre Swift, it's kind of on you right now. You need to be off to a fast start this season. You need to show that you're the guy for Ben Johnson and his offense, because what Ben Johnson did with the Lions is backward of what he's going to have to do with the Bears. In Detroit, it was, we're going to run the ball first, we're going to run it often, and that's going to set up the pass. Here in Chicago, you can't do it that way. You're going to have to pass to set up the run. So that's putting a lot of pressure on DeAndre Swift when he does get the ball to do something with it.
Right. And we've heard him say his philosophy isn't to force the issue. He's going to take what the defense gives him. So he said at one point this offseason, if the game plan calls for throwing it every time, then we're going to throw it every time. And there is something that I'm excited to talk about here later in the week, but I want to get a chance to see this stuff for myself. But a guy, and forgive me for not giving you the proper shout out with your name, but he tagged me this morning. I think his name was Greg, so that makes sense because he's a smart guy. But he sent me a link to his Reddit post of earmarking all the different spots in this new series on Netflix, Quarterback. And they follow around a few different ones, including Jared Goff. So you see some interactions with Ben Johnson and Jared Goff and Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. And at one point, Ben Johnson apparently, and I want to see it for myself, like I said, so I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, we're not running it. We're done running the rest of the game. There's no point.
Wow.
I'm scrapping it. We're going to throw the ball. So he's always going to do what is necessary for what he has with his team and his components and what the defense is telling him he needs to do as a play caller. So I think we've got the right mind there in that scenario. But you're right, running game certainly is one of the biggest concerns on things that could go wrong, especially behind DeAndre Swift. Who's going to be that second back? And Roschon Johnson hasn't really taken that baton, and you want him to be that power back. but maybe Kyle Monungai comes in there. But again, a rookie that I have to be patient with, along with some others that are excited about him, but, have to be realistic about what he's able to do in his rookie year.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery aren't walking through that door. So DeAndre Swift is going to have to be the guy that carries the load there. I'll get to my last one here before the break, and this is the nightmare scenario that we should all be terrified of. I don't even like saying the words, but what could go wrong? Well, Caleb Williams gets injured. Yeah, not only does it set your season off to a terrible pacing there because your quarterback is out, but you're ruining Caleb Williams' development at that point. We cannot risk that. This is a guy, the highest drafted quarterback we've ever had as Bears fans. If he gets injured, I hate to say it like this, the season's over. I love Tyson Bagent.
Don't tell Carm that.
Yeah, I love Tyson Bagent. I called him the best backup quarterback in the league just last week. But you need to see Caleb Williams on the field, and you need to see him develop. If he gets injured, I am terrified. And he took some bad hits last year. Yeah, there's the 68 sacks. We're aware of those. But remember that play against the Lions when he should have slid and he didn't, and it looked like a serious injury to his knee? Oh, I don't want to see that ever again. Caleb Williams, slide, protect yourself. Listen to what C.J. Stroud told you in week 2, I think it was.
Right.
Yeah, don't take so many hits. Protect yourself.
Yeah. I mean, 68 sacks last year, and he found a way to not be injured in those 17 games, but you can't really you're kind of taking that for granted, thinking that will be the same outcome. You get sacked that many times, you take that many quarterback hits this year, and you're really asking for trouble if you're Caleb Williams. So, I think injuries certainly kind of go without saying. That's part of the reason why I left that off my list, because you saw even Andrew Billings get hurt last year.
That was a big loss. Yeah.
And Ben Johnson pointed out how much of a different team they were defensively. So, you need guys to stay healthy. It's really not the league to be banking on those kind of things. Obviously, quarterback health is paramount. I am grateful that we do have a backup in Tyson Bagent that I feel confident in. Carm lusts over him, so I know he feels very confident in him as well. But all joking aside, I wouldn't, I would be intrigued to see how he would do if he was called upon in a pinch. At the same time, not necessarily a veteran, so there'd be a learning curve there, especially with a first-year play caller. But no shortage of confidence in Tyson Bagent either. But I have told Carm he's not allowed to even mention those words the rest of the year. You said it. That's fine. We'll let you get away with it for once. And I know for some fans, talking about worst-case scenarios is the last thing anyone wants to do. And I know we're excited for the season, so we're not trying to bring bad vibes to the table, but we're trying to reverse engineer all our thoughts when we get into the season. Because once training camp starts, we know how this goes. It's all hype all day. Every time we come to the microphone, more times than not, we're going to be very optimistic and positive about what we've been seeing at camp because it's training camp.
Yeah.
It's Bears versus Bears. If the offense has had a bad day, then the defense is having a good day and vice versa. So, we always try to be objective here, but it's a little harder for me as the meatball.
We try doing the confirmation bias thing where we're looking for things that we want to look for.
Right.
Yeah, we can't be doing that this year.
No. So running game, defensive line, offensive line. I know Gary kept mentioning in the chat, interior offensive line depth. I'm sorry, after last year and the offensive line issues we had, I understand there was a lot of injuries, so you got to have that depth. Most teams don't have secondary depth behind, and I know PFF graded the Bears as a top 4 offensive line in football. We've never had a good offensive line, so now that we finally do, I'll take that win. And if we got to continue to address depth as we go along, we'll figure that. We'll cross that road as we get there. But I understand, you got to have more guys behind there. But don't sleep on Bill Murray there, Gary Ross, or Doug Kramer. Thank you very much. I know everybody wants to give him crap for, how he plays as a running back, but let's see how he continues to develop as a center. So that's it for all the negativity. I saw somebody say that Carm missed out on the one show of what could go wrong.
He would have thrived today.
He's always the guy pointing out what could go wrong. But we took the reins here today. I teased it a little bit yesterday. I know last week we had a show that was best and worst case scenarios. In typical meatball fashion, we only talked about the best case scenarios. So there were some of what Bears fans kind of need to brace for and keep an eye on. But, I think things will go pretty well for the Bears this year. So we're going to take a quick timeout, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the things that Albert Breer responded to in a mailbag that caused some conversation for Bears fans about who the Bears could potentially acquire during training camp to add to that depth. But we'll take a break and give a shout out to our sponsors first, so stay with us. Guess what, Chicago? The best weekend of the summer is here, and that is because the Windy City Smokeout is here right down the street from our studios. It's going to be right there in the parking lot at the United Center from July 10th through the 13th. We're talking 4 full days of country music, ice cold drinks, and the all award-winning barbecue for all your stomach that can handle, and it is some really good eats. It doesn't get any better than that. And if you haven't grabbed your tickets yet, Thursday and Friday tickets are still available. I will be there on Thursday and Friday. I will be there all 4 days. Thank you very much. If you find me in the crowd, I may just buy you a drink. So don't miss out on the best weekend of the summer. Grab your tickets Thursday and Friday now at WindyCitySmokeout.com.
Braggs, you know where I was at yesterday?
Where's that?
I was golfing.
I bet.
And I was using my brand new PXG clubs.
There you go.
En route to shooting 10 under and not winning. But we did really well, and I was never been better with my irons. Thank you to PXG.
Yep.
For me, my game was struggling. You've seen it.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I get the PXG
Especially
clubs.
in the sand.
Okay, let's not talk about the sand. I didn't get the wedge from them. Maybe if I would have, I'd be better in the sand.
Yeah, that's true.
But PXG fitters are highly trained, incredibly experienced, and have a deep understanding of how to optimize your club and get the most out of your swing. It's the fastest way to improve your performance on the golf course. Just go get a PXG fitting. They'll get you little swing tips in there. They'll get you a size just right. Your swing will never be better. And their fittings are educational and fun. So schedule your fitting today, and for a limited time, you can save up to 20% on your entire order. Head over to pxg.com/CHGO. That's pxg.com/CHGO to save up to 20% off your entire order. pxg.com/CHGO. Restrictions apply. See site for full details.
And you know that Adam Hogue certainly enjoys his PXGs, so get yourself some. That's right. Shout out to PXG all day long. Shout out to anyone that can improve our golf game. But we're back. Hit that like button, everyone here in the chat. We appreciate everyone showing their support here on the back end of June and July, these early days. These are the dog days of the summer. These are the hardest days for football content. Anyone that's covering just football specific, even NFL Network, they get 32 teams to talk about. We're only talking about the Bears all day, every day here at the CHGO Bears Podcast. And so for those of you that are the fans that stick with us during these times, we don't forget that. And when the season starts and there's 10,000 live viewers on a post-game show and all that, we always appreciate you guys that stick with us during the slower times here. And so we're trying to have some fun, keep the conversation rolling as we get closer to rookies reporting to Hallis Hall. So once again, hit the like button. For those of you that joined a little late, Stephen Nicholas here joining the show for the first time ever in the host chair. Normally he's in the producer chair, and Katie's holding it down for us here today. Carm had to take the day off. Hopefully we can see him before the end of the week, but if not, we'll continue to rock these shows out for you guys. And also, Chim Richels here in the chat, who's here every day. Yeah. He's getting cooked. He's getting cooked today about playoff wins. They've only had one in the last 4 years. Matt Stafford wins a Super Bowl as soon as he leaves the Lions because he's always here. They were
holding him back, yeah.
Yeah. And so normally he's harassing the chat, but today it really feels like the Bears chat is taking him to task. So shout out to the chat for that. And Chim Richels, you can jump in a lake anytime. You're welcome to do that. Well, I'm just saying.
He's one of our most consistent viewers. Him and Don Burr are our biggest fans.
Can I not say, Katie, that he can't jump in a lake? I mean, is that not a fair, request?
I mean, you can tell him to do whatever you want. It was just a little bit violent.
Well,
You
maybe
could say
he can
take
swim.
a hike. Take a hike is a little bit
Maybe
better.
he can swim. Swim all the way to Michigan. Okay. All right. So, shout out to all you guys. But let's get into it, Steven. I know this is something you wanted to talk about. And honestly, it made a little bit of waves in Bears podcasting world. Once again, This is the slow time for
Yeah.
the season. So if anybody mentions anything Bears, it then becomes a story on every single outlet, and everybody starts to run with
Take
it
it
and
and run
kind
with it,
of
everybody.
creating the narrative of that conversation. Albert Breer was on with Cap and J Hood this morning and kind of addressed why that became a story. And he basically said, hey, we did a mailbag show. I was talking about defensive ends and running backs, and somebody asked me, could the Bears be looking at some potential targets? And I said, hey, this is Albert Breer talking, but he said, hey, I said, 2 weeks into camp, if things aren't, looking right for Roschon Johnson, if they don't know where Dio Dengbo is going to line up, maybe he moves inside, on certain downs and distances. Do they want to look at different targets? So, I know you had some thoughts. Albert Breer brought up some names. So why don't you take us through where we're at with that?
Yeah, the direct quote, this is from Breer. He said, I think that it's all relative to what's out there. So we'll take a look at DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson at running back and Montez Sweat and Dio Dengbo on the edges when the pads go on, and then maybe consider guys such as Jamal Williams at running back or Zadarius Smith or Matthew Judon as edge rushers. Now, once again, he wasn't saying that the Bears are talking to these guys. He wasn't saying that they're going to sign with the
Breaking
Bears.
news. Bears are linked to
That's what it looked like.
Well,
that was
people
Twitter.
did that.
Yeah.
And it's Bears content world. We all understand the game. Fans want to, talk about these things.
Yeah.
So there's no hate. Don't hate the hustle. Don't hate the player. Hate the game. But that's kind of where Albert Breer kind of shot those things down today.
Yeah, and I to his defense, I did think some of those names made some sense. The one I didn't think made any sense, though, was Jamal Williams. All right, so there's the connection. This is the obvious thing everyone's going to do. Ben Johnson had him in Detroit. He had a career year. I think he was one of, if not the league's leading rushers, leading rush TDs. And then you look the last 2 years. Well, Dennis Allen had him with the Saints. Those last 2 years were not good. In 2023, 2.9 yards per carry. In 2024, 3.4 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
Total TDs in those 2 seasons, 2. Jamal Williams is not a guy I have any interest in for the Bears. I mean, what would you be asking him to do, the Roschon Johnson role? Roschon Johnson could put up those numbers for you. I'm sure of it. I would rather not take any snaps away from Kyle Monangai either. If you want the veteran, I understand, but I don't think Jamal Williams is the guy.
What's funny is when you talk about Bears fans just reaching for anything, Alvin Kamara randomly threw out the first pitch at the Cubs game.
I saw that, yeah.
And Bears fans were like, should the Bears sign Alvin Kamara? It's like, I don't think that's going to happen. And Alvin Kamara has been a great player in this league, but that just kind of shows, any little bit of football or Bears, we kind of just, go crazy about it.
It's more of the Dennis Allen connection, too. Plus, the Saints drafted Devin Neal this year out of Kansas. He's a guy I liked out of the draft.
Now, Alvin Kamara probably would have seen the 7th inning stretch a little better than the Caller Daddy crew.
He would have taken it seriously. That was terrible. That was one of the hardest watches. He just cringed the whole time through.
It was terrible, but it's so bad that it was actually kind of funny how angry. And I'm a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
And don't disrespect the booth. Don't disrespect the 7th inning stretch. But I will say how mad everyone's about it is actually kind of entertaining too.
It is funny. It is funny. Never do it again. Never give them another shot there. It was a tough watch.
I sat in the booth while Woot sang the 7th inning stretch one time, and he's got some work to do on the song too.
I'm gonna tell him you said that.
Yeah.
See if you
Go
say
ahead,
it to his
tell
face.
him,
Yeah.
tell him. As I beat him on the golf course.
Just to get back on track here, Matthew Judon was the one name that I was kind of interested in. We know the Bears have pursued him before. Ryan Poles has shown before that he'll go after the same guy twice if he doesn't get him the first time. Ryan Bates being the comp there.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Judon's interesting. He had a terrible year last year. Okay, 5.5 sacks, not the worst. But just what we were talking about in our first block of the show about getting to the quarterback, well, you also need some depth to do so. You can't expect everyone to be healthy for a full 17 games. Maybe my other concern, Dio Dengbo, doesn't really pan out the way that we all hope he will.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we'd get the Matthew Judon of old back in 2022 when he had 15.5 sacks with the Patriots. But if we could get something like he plays 35-40% of the snaps and he gets 6 sacks in a year, I think we'd be really happy with that. Matthew Judon to me on a really cheap deal, I'm talking anywhere from $1 to $3 million, which I think is realistic at this point of the offseason since he's not on a team. I think that could be a really sound addition for the Bears and give them the depth that they need at edge.
It gives you an insurance policy if you swung and missed on Dio Odangbo.
Yeah.
Let's call this for what it is, because
Yep.
you're trying to figure out who is going to be the other edge rusher, get into the quarterback. You feel secure with your defensive tackles. And, hey, maybe Dio Odangbo continues to hear these conversations and has a chip on his shoulder and plays much better than we ever thought. I take you back to a guy in Alex Brown who came over, I believe, from the Dolphins and came here. No, that was Adewale Agunlia. Maybe I'm wrong on Alex Brown. Maybe it was Agunlia.
I think he started with the Bears.
And he comes over. Right.
Yeah.
Brown started with, I think it was Adewale that
Okay.
I'm thinking of, comes over, and then he comes with the Bears and really, it takes his career to another level. Maybe Dio Odangbo is a guy that can do that here, in Dennis Allen's defense and has some protection, next to him or insurance next to him with defensive tackles that can get to the quarterback as well. And maybe not everybody's as keyed in on him. We'll talk about some different names. We got a few more things to get to. And when we do, we'll wrap this show up and make sure you're hitting the like button here for Steven. We got a poll in the chat here as well that says hit the like button before answering. Who do you think is a better golfer, Bragg, Steven, or they're both bad?
See.
You think that's funny, Katie, huh?
I
Well,
do think
if you had
that's
seen
funny.
us here the other day at Lost Marsh, you would confirm that we're both bad.
Yeah.
As I, on the 10th hole, started pouting. So we'll get to all that and more, talk about a few names that the Bears could be looking at as additions when we come back on the other side of this. So stick with us here on the CHGO Bears Podcast.
Braggs, it is hot and sunny out, and it wouldn't be the same without my shady rays. You know the moment, the
right.
one where you realize that you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car,
On
or
the
for
golf
me,
course.
in the golf cart. That's
That's right.
exactly what I
That's
did.
right.
And I left them in there, called up. Oh, they can't find them. That's because somebody else wanted my shady rays.
That's right.
But the good thing about shady rays is if you do happen to leave them somewhere, you could call them right up. You could say, hey, listen, I forgot my sunglasses at the golf course. And they could hook you up with a brand new pair, even if you lose them on day one. Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now I actually wear my sunglasses without fear. That's to concerts. That's the golf course. That's on the boat. It doesn't matter. Shady Rays is the eyewear that has your back.
They're great.
We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head over to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off. Polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
Steven, I got a question for you.
Let's hear it.
What time is it?
Game time. Woo.
That's right. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They have killer last-minute deals, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee. They're one of my favorite apps because when you go on there, they have an aerial view of all the different prices available, but they give the hot deal, the cheapest deal, and all these different icons that you can kind of see exactly where you're getting the best bang for your buck. And it's always wait till the last minute because Game Time is always going to take care of you, and that's when the prices certainly go down the most. That's how I've gotten some of my best concert tickets this year. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Shout out to our wonderful sponsors here on the CHGO Bears Podcast. Once again, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Appreciate everybody in the chat hanging out. Our poll right now is at 51%. Both of us are bad golfers. Steven, you are in second at better golfer. Who's the better golfer at 30%? And I am in last at 20%, and I take offense to that. And I understand you all are trying to be nice to Steven because he's here for the first time, but, that's very rude of you. And then somebody also put in the chat who was more likely to take post a shirtless picture of themselves playing golf. And
Wow,
you would think
you would think
that it
it's
would
me.
be Steven.
We have several examples here in the last 2 weeks of it actually being
Yeah.
you.
Well, I couldn't do it at Lost Marsh because the Rangers were all over us
they
the
were
whole day.
wondering what was in my backpack. They
And
were right.
They were correct in the assumption that there was alcohol in there. But, Yeah, it's become a tradition of mine now, Bo Chanton. I'm now doing the shirtless pick on whatever tee box when I'm starting to lose my mind because I can't put the ball where I want it to. So, we're always talking golf here, especially in the summertime. So, what other names did we have? Do we have any more here as we're rounding third here on the show today?
Well, Albert Breer didn't bring these guys up, but I think these guys are really realistic trade targets for the Bears. I'll start with Kenneth Walker on the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker is a very good running back, but that is a very, very deep running back room in Seattle. He's a guy I would love to get, and I even think I have a good trade offer for him. I think when you look at the Seahawks, one of their weaknesses, it's corner. I think a Tyreek Stevenson for Kenneth Walker deal would actually make a lot of sense. You might need to add in a couple pieces here or there, maybe a draft pick or two, something smaller though. Kenneth Walker, he's in a contract, a walk year we'll call it. He's in a contract year. Tyreek Stevenson has 2 years remaining on his deal. There's only a $900,000 difference in their two salaries, so that's really easy to get to match up. And like I said, the Seahawks need some help at corner. Tyreek Stevenson maybe is a guy who could use a change of scenery. I do think that Al Harris being around will be a very positive thing for his development and his maturity as well. Mm-hmm. We've seen what Al Harris has done in Dallas, Deron Bland, and then also Trevon Diggs, turning both of those guys into all-pros. But Tyreek Stevenson, it's a little bit of an embarrassment of riches at that position for the Bears. And I think if they were to move somebody on the depth chart, it would make a lot of sense to start at corner. You look at some of the other names behind him on the team, and you just drafted Zay Frazier. I don't think you're going to draft him to not play him, right? Elijah Hicks is on the team as well, although he's going to play safety. There's enough options here for me that I think you could go to the one position that I think the team is lacking the most in running back and get a home run hitter to take a lot of pressure off the offense.
I kind of want to kick, we kicked the can down the road last year on offensive line. Didn't work out well for the Bears last year, but now all of a sudden kicking that can down the road has gotten us Joe Thuney. I say us because I love the Bears and they're my team, but Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, and Ozzie Trapillo obviously getting drafted. So it worked out, even though the Bears lost 10 in a row in result of kicking that can down the road. So I'm kind of more of the mindset, let's kick the running back can down the road until next offseason. Obviously, everybody's looking at Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame.
Including me, yeah.
A dynamic running back that could maybe fall in the area the Bears are drafting, and that would be a great addition. Jeremiah Love's an extremely talented and tough-ass running back. Played through some injuries in the college football playoff last year. But I don't want to get rid of Tyreek Stevenson yet. I think Tyreek Stevenson, with Dennis Allen, playing in a defense that suits his strengths as a press cover corner, I think is going to play into the best of Tyreek Stevenson. I also think having a guy like Al Harris there coaching him could really give him a change of mentality after everything that happened with him last year. I also think that Washington Commanders game and the way he addressed it a few months ago has humbled him, and he's gone about it a very mature way. So, again, playing with a chip on your shoulder this year, I think Tyreek Stevenson could have a really big year. Again, if the defensive line can get to the quarterback, that can give Tyreek Stevenson, who is a ball hawk, a very aggressive ball hawk, an opportunity to get his hands on some more footballs like we saw week 1 when Will Levis just underhand threw him a football. He's going to have to work a little harder for his pick sixes this year. But at the same time, I think Tyreek Stevenson is the type of guy that can take, not just turn the ball over, but turn it into 6 points. So I'm not really in a hurry to get rid of him, but I kind of understand where the contract comp makes sense. And I was big on Kenneth Walker coming out of college as well. I'd love for him to be on the Bears. I just wouldn't want to give up Tyreek Stevenson for him.
I can't disagree with you. It's a hypothetical. That's what we're doing here. I like what Tyreek Stevenson brings to the table, but it's just one of those things where I look at the depth chart and I say there's a glut of corners on this team, including, like I said, Zay Frazier. You're going to want to use him. There's no way they're drafting him to just keep him on the bench and just add to a position of depth that they already had. And Kenneth Walker, for me, is a running back who would make a lot of sense. I saw Eric Beauchamp in the chat bring up another one that makes a ton of sense. That's Kyron Williams, also in a walk year. The depth chart, they've drafted running backs each of the last 2 years. 2 years ago it was Blake Corum. This year it was Jarquez Hunter. Kyron Williams, last year of his deal, he's had tons of wear on those tires. He's a guy I wouldn't be surprised the Rams kind of put out there a little bit to see what the interest might look like. Another one I have in here, and I know this is gonna kind of perk up everybody's ears as Bears fans. I've seen these rumors a lot. It's Breece Hall. This all started because the Jets said they plan to regularly utilize 3 running backs on the team. So they don't want Breece Hall getting all of these carries game after game after game like we started seeing that a little bit in his rookie year. He tears his ACL. Last season, he starts having knee pain in the same knee, or pain in the same knee that he had the ACL surgery on. Something that you could probably familiarize yourself with a little bit.
I'm a machine.
Arguable. So now, I mean, the Jets could look at this and say, well, we're a little worried that this could be a repeat issue with the knee. Maybe we deal him now while he still has some value. Coming off a bit of a down year by his standards, I think he would be someone that would take the Bears to the next level. Breece Hall, to me, is one of the best running backs in the game when healthy. And at the very least, Ryan Poles should pick up the phone, call the Jets, and say, hey, what would it take to get Breece Hall on this team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know Gary here in the chat saying, look for them to maybe potentially add some safety depth. That would make a lot of sense.
I
He
think
mentions
they need
Blackman. You know, maybe if there's some interior offensive linemen. I know he keeps talking about that as well. Maybe there's somebody they can add to that room. You know, but we'll have to wait and see. I think they're going to want to see how things shake out the first couple weeks of training camp, as Albert Breer mentioned. But, you know, Ryan Poles is not afraid to make additions at the last minute, at the trade deadline. And as much as we need to have patience, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, and like, hey, there's not everything's going to go right this year. So we have to kind of, you know, keep an open mind of the development of this team in year 1 of Ben Johnson. At all that being said, it's still a win now roster. And so Ryan Poles, I guarantee, recognizes that and will do anything he can to make sure they have every opportunity to kind of push this over the top.
Well, the flip side of that, too, is it has to be a win now season if you're Ryan Poles, because your job could be on the line if you don't have a good season here. We can't do the 5-12 thing again. If they go 5-12 this year after all the additions they made, I see no scenario that Ryan Poles is still the Bears general manager in 2026. So, I mean, I think that he will be looking aggressively at the trade market, whether it be during this offseason or maybe it's a Montez Sweat type of deal, you know, at the deadline, or the Chase Claypool one that didn't work out, something of that ilk. Because, like I said, I mean, Ryan Poles, this is kind of it for you. You need to show them right now that you deserve to be the Chicago Bears general manager this season and moving forward.
Yeah, I'm a big Ryan Poles guy. I think just like with the Tyreek thing, I think I'd push back a little bit. I mean, you're talking doomsday scenario at 5-12. We didn't even envision that being a reality or a possibility last year until it smacked us all in the face as hard as we've ever been smacked, and it certainly hurt 10 games in a row. But all that being said, when you hire Ben Johnson in his first year, Caleb's in his second year, I just think things would have to go really, really bad. And then how do you blame Ryan Poles and not the coaching staff for getting the most out of it? Because that's what happened last year. Eberflus gets jettisoned, but that was a roster that could have won more games than it did.
We all thought
they would. So now he loses his job because of that, but Ryan Poles kept it. You know, Ryan Poles potentially could have been the guy that had been let go with Matt Eberflus and wiped the slate clean. But I think ownership and Kevin Warren, I think they recognize, like, hey, he did put the coaches in a position to win more games than 5. Maybe not enough to be a playoff team because the offensive line wasn't good last year. And, you know, it wasn't, and he was also part of the hiring process that brought in Shane Waldron Cliff Kingsbury or some other guys. But I don't think I would be hard pressed to believe that. I think they got to keep this together for 2-3 years. And if things aren't going right, then you might reassess and look at general manager. And we'll never know what his contract is either. That's, I think, the other part of that too, is we don't know if he got a contract extension this offseason. And maybe Ben Johnson said part of his criteria of agreeing to become the Bears head coach was that he had, you know, some ties to Ryan Poles where they're connected here going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. Want to give a shout out to all our diehards here at CHGO Sports. You can become a diehard at allchgo.com/diehard. We always have great deals for you guys to sign up all the time, but it's a great time to become a diehard with training camp right around the corner, exclusive written content, free shirt right out the gate, discounts on shirts, discounts on events, training camp right around the corner, but so is our tailgates for every home game. We talk about week 1 being a must-win. Well, week 1 is a must show up to our tailgate Monday night. Take the day off, forget work, come on over to our tailgate. Even if you're not going to the game, it is the best place to pregame for a Bears game. Tickets are already on sale at allchgo.com/events. But if you're a diehard, you get a discount on that event.
Plus, if you want to find out the actual answer to the poll, August 22nd, CHGO Kickoff Classic.
Yeah.
At Cog Hill's number 2 course, Ravines, which I just played last week.
Yep.
Didn't go well. You could join us there. You could get a discount on that event as well.
That's right. So as we've reached overtime here on the CHGO Bears podcast, we appreciate everybody hanging out here for a unique show as Stephen Nicholas sits in here with us as our sales guy Jim walks over with the creepiest smile that anyone ever creep-a-leaped over here. What's that? No, we already did them. You want us to run some more ads? Our sales guy
came
wants
over here just for
our
the
sales
ads,
guy wants us
away?
to do an ad read. Yeah, well, we're not, so walk away. No, that's
Super
good. That's
chats.
Jim's our sales guy. He does a great job when he's not annoying me. But we love him. So we appreciate it as we get. So how do you like this so far, sitting in the host chair? What did you learn today?
The show goes by a lot faster sitting here.
Yeah.
A lot faster.
Yeah.
Also learned that you got to read the ads pretty thoroughly before it's time to actually do them.
Yeah, I don't know who. I don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't say that, Jim. Don't let
Case in
Jim
point,
hear
yeah.
that. Don't let Jim hear that. I'm a natural when it comes to that. How about the chat? Is that
You say that you can't get your eyes off the chat during the show.
Right.
I barely saw it at all.
right?
I saw a
You're
couple
locked
comments.
in.
I did see my mom was watching, so there's
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
But no, other than that, I really didn't see too much of the
See,
chat.
I
I saw we do
can't-
have some super chats too, but
Yeah.
other than
I
that,
think Hoag's like that, where he locks in, he doesn't see the chat, and me and Carm, us
can't take your eyes off of it.
us being the insecure guys that we are always looking at the chat because they're always yelling at us about something. Then I get fired up. So yeah, I've always said that this is a good exercise. Having the producers on this side, I know Katie does a great job as a producer, but she's also on screen.
Mm-hmm.
She's covered the Sky this season, so she knows what it's like to be on the other side. I produce shows here at times, and it's always, I think, something that when you're on both sides of that camera,
Learn
at
a
some
lot.
point you kind of learn, and it makes you better.
Yeah.
At whatever your specific role is. So it was fun to have you over here today.
it's fun to be over here today.
Yeah, it was good. So Carm will be back here soon. Hoag is going to, come back from vacation at some point in his
Maybe.
life.
We'll see.
And we look forward to it, but he's out on his boat at his lake house. So, we'll, hopefully he can, rejoin us
Well,
here
Adam
at some
Hoag
point.
isn't here, but Papa Hoag is.
Papa
I saw
Hoag
him in the
is
chat.
here. Shout out to Papa Hoag because he said just because Adam isn't on doesn't mean I haven't been paying attention to the show. Loved yesterday's show with Hub Arkish. Appreciate you, Papa Hoag. It was a lot of fun talking with Hub yesterday. One of the foundational pieces of Chicago Bears media here over the last few decades, and hearing his insights and hearing his stories about how he's the last guy to interview George Halas. Those were some cool, things to be able to sit there and hear him break down. So if you didn't check out that show, make sure you check it out. That was yesterday's program. So we appreciate everybody here. We got some super chats to get to. The Motor Music Michael, Motor Music City Miracle for a $20 super chat saying, able to listen live today and lucky enough to have you two hosting. Appreciate all of CHGO. I would hate if Rodgers has another stellar performance at Soldier Field. Want DA's defense to have their best game of the year that day. I mean, that's when you talk about what could go wrong.
Yeah,
Rodgers,
didn't even bring that one up.
Rodgers owning us one more time at Soldier Field would be a thorn in the side. So
Can't have that. I would love to send him out with just the ugliest loss of his career. Like, we just put up like a 40 burger on him, and, you know, he throws 3 picks. We get a pick 6 somewhere in there. One of those types of things to really put the stamp on his career as an L against the Bears.
Yep. And I think they will. Gardenhoser, who I affectionately call Gardenier, and that's French. So he brought in a $5 super chat. Been super you know what? When I say things that are really obnoxious, Katie doesn't laugh. And that, like, I am now, my new goal is to say even dumber things to see what the threshold is to
just
get
when
her.
We thought it couldn't be done, you're going to say dumber things.
Well, like yesterday.
We don't need to bring up what you said yesterday.
Well, yeah, we can. So yesterday,
No.
Oh, God.
our
No.
social intern, Libby Berger, and I've made a lot of burger jokes
They're
at
all
her dispense.
terrible.
Right. So it was her birthday a couple days ago, and I said she had a Whopper of a day. And then I repeated the joke like 3 more times to other people.
He said it, and then he made sure that I heard it, and I told him it was terrible, and then he went in to Studio B and bothered Libby with the joke. Like, it was, he said it so many times.
Then we had a company meeting, and I made sure to put that, I said it during the company meeting. And the whole time, like, I was laughing really hard.
Do you see what I deal with, Katie? I do this 5 days a week. 5 days a week.
That seems like a personal problem.
Yeah.
She also
I can't
has
help you
seen
with.
today. She's seen me threaten the chat. I was also slightly threatening Emma earlier of some terrible things. So, you know, this is just kind of what you deal with here with me here. And as Dr. Truth in chat, mute him, Katie. We will here shortly. So anyway, going back to Gardenier, he says, been super busy, boys, but thank you for your hard work during these quiet times. #1 Bears show out there. Brags, you rock the bald cut. Thank you, sir. Hair's already growing back a little bit, Jenny.
Growing fast.
Yeah, it's growing fast, as hair does, I guess, for some more than others. Because Jenny was mentioning that the other day, too. So, yeah, it won't be bald for long. Bruno with a $5 super chat saying, I think the run game is going to go wrong this year. I don't think Swift has it. Hope I'm wrong. Thank you guys for all the great content. Yeah, it's definitely a hope for the best. Trust in Ben Johnson that he's going to know how to utilize the pieces that he has. I'm not as down. I'm not going to say I'm high on the run game, but I'm not as down as some people. I think we're starting to get a point with the roster that there isn't that many flaws, knock on wood. You know, this is me with my blind spots again.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like there's that many holes in this roster. So now we're nitpicking, like Gary's saying, depth on the interior of the offensive line. We've finally gotten to a point that now that's an issue. That means I think that's like
It's the best problem we've had in a while.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
you know. So now we're looking at, defensive end, and we're looking at running back. But, like, I still think there's answers for this season in there. Are they, Saquon Barkley answers? No. But can Ben Johnson get the most out of it? He's proven it. When he had DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, they were 11th in the league in rushing. So and that was early in his installation of what the Lions offense had eventually become.
Yeah.
So I do think that Ben Johnson will know how to utilize these guys to the best of their ability.
Yeah,
So,
I am a little bit more nervous about the run game. I'm definitely one of those people that you referred to. DeAndre Swift last year, 3.8 yards per carry. That was a career low. I'd like to see him a little bit closer to the 5.5 he averaged in his last season with the Lions, with Ben Johnson, mind you. Mm-hmm. And I think he has a good chance to do it this year with a much, much improved offensive line. Another year with Caleb under center, him being a better passer with those weapons, I think will open things up a little bit for Swift. Mm-hmm. I'm just not sold on him being the home run hitter that I would personally want to take that pressure off of Caleb. But, I mean, it's just going to have to wait and see approach. We're going to have to hope that this offensive line just creates some lanes that DeAndre Swift didn't have last year, because what we kept seeing was he'd start running inside and he'd shoot it out to the side instead.
Yeah,
He kept wanting to go
Ben Johnson
outside.
said it earlier at the owners' meetings. He said,
Yeah.
when he kind of went down the list of what guys need to work on, he said, DeAndre Swift got to stop trying to hit the home run all the time. And obviously that was probably a talking point, years ago when he coached him in Detroit. So, hey, as it sounds like Ben Johnson's holding these guys accountable. And I think it's going to, as Hub Arkish said yesterday, he's not trying to be their friend. So I think the feedback and the criticisms they're going to get here during training camp are going to be healthy. And hopefully the Bears players internalize that and take it the right way and execute what the coach's visions are. And, I think this could be a much better year, from an execution and a chemistry standpoint than anything we saw last year. So we'll have to wait and see. But we're always, keeping an eye on our blind spots, as I've learned the last few years here, with my delusions of grandeur and my hoping and trying to speak things into existence, and it just hasn't come to fruition. I just want to talk about a good team here. So I'm excited for this season. I'm very optimistic, and I'm just hoping for a great season for all you Bears fans. Then we can have some fun on our post-game shows, and I'm not firing everyone. And
I don't think you'll be firing everyone this year.
So
you'll give them a longer leash this time around.
Yep. So shout out to Katie once again for coming in a pinch and producing. Steven jumping in the host chair. Great job today. I think we can officially say Carm's on the hot seat.
That's good. Scare him. Don't say that.
Yeah, no, we're kidding. We love you, Carm, and we're excited for you to come back. We'll see how the rest of the week plays out. We've got some great things planned. I'll tease it for all you that were able to stay for the end of the show. Eric Kramer officially is joining the show tomorrow at noon. So we'll get his insights because he's a Detroit Lions and a Bears guy, and he was on the sidelines for all those playoff games last year in Detroit. And so it'll be exciting to hear kind of what he saw from a Detroit lens and then how that's going to transfer over here in Chicago.
And I think we're going to have to pull a clip of him talking about Bo Nix, and everyone's going to have to apologize to him for that. He was so right about that.
Yeah, everyone, especially you, Elric, who stayed with us the whole show. So shout out to you. Big of you, Elric. So that's it. We got some more fun things planned for the rest of the week. So just stay tuned for all of that. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. And as I always like to say when I end a show, keep your head up. And always, bear down. Bear the F down. Let's go downtown to Chinatown.
Let her wrap the show.
Wrap. That's a wrap, Katie.
We all silly like the mayor.